Hello, this is Miss Andrea, and this is not another homeschool vlog. I'm going to read this story because it is something that a lot of homeschooling moms experience. Am I the jerk for kicking my dad out after he face-palmed me for choosing to homeschool my daughter? My parents came over for dinner last night. My husband and I have been married 16 years and have 2 kids. Male 14, female 5. Since we spend Christmas with his side of the family when it's not our turn to host, we wanted to have a nice evening with my parents. A recurring issue between me and my dad is that he seems to resent that he funded both my undergrad and a graduate program abroad. And now I'm not using those degrees in a conventional career path. My husband is from a large Idaho family with LDS roots and generational wealth. He earns a salary working part-time in one of the family businesses, and any additional money from the family goes toward investments under his name. There's been some tension between my dad and my husband for years. Let's just say they don't see eye to eye on a few personal matters. Things in my marriage are in a better place now, and my husband has recently been encouraging me to consider homeschooling our youngest. He said, with my education and creativity, I could offer her a uniquely rich experience. And if I choose to return to work, it should be for something that justified outsourcing what I could provide myself. $70,000 plus job with benefits. I had previously told my parents I planned to go back to work once my daughter started school, so I decided to share my updated thoughts with them over dinner. My dad asked, is this just about waiting for the right job? I said it wasn't about that. He followed with, so you're not going to use your degrees? I replied that homeschooling is using my degrees. That's when he slapped his hand to his face and said, so not for something your degree actually qualifies you for. I snapped. I told him to stop acting like my education was a wasted investment just because I'm choosing to invest it in my child. And then I asked him to leave. My husband backed me up. My mom left too, which makes me feel awful. My dad has also criticized me being a stay-at-home mom, saying that most of the money my husband earns isn't mine, and I should protect myself with a job. So am I the jerk for asking him to leave? There are some problematic things in this story. It sounds like if something were to happen in the marriage, that the wife would probably be left penniless. And so her dad is frustrated. Her dad is also frustrated because he educated her greatly, and he's not going to ever see the fruit of those labors in a way that feels tangible to him, right? But she's an adult, and she gets to make her own choices in life. And as a parent, you shouldn't be educating your child with your eye on the satisfaction you're going to get out of that education, right? So someone said, you seem to have a lot of phrases that start with, my husband said, that direct how you're supposed to live your life and career. What do you want? I see what appears to be a lot of controlling behavior from your husband, and that may be the reason your dad is upset. Maybe he wants to see you fulfill your own wishes for your life, as well as being a wife and mom. What was your intention when you went to college? What did you tell your father? Who do you want to be? I don't think your dad expressed himself well, but he may have some valid concerns. You're both jerks. Your dad is worried about you and your future. He can obviously see the limitations your husband has placed on you. Have a careful and truthful look at your life. Your dad is right. It sounds like you're wearing blinders. Your husband's family controls his money. He works part-time for them as well. Any money that comes in goes to him to use however he wants. What money do you have for yourself, OP? OP, you are setting yourself up for disaster. All his family has to do is cut him off, and your life will automatically change. You will have a degree but have failed to put it to use. I recommend you start a bank account that you have 100% control of. Right now, you're willing to enter a life where you have no control. You will have no money except what he gives you. He will have no money except what they give him. What happens when you decide you can't live like that? So this opened up a bag of worms that is kind of typical for Reddit, signs of abuse creeping through. But in my personal case, homeschooling was something I decided to do. And I had family members come at me in a similar manner. You're highly educated. Wouldn't it make more sense for you to take those degrees, go get your teacher's license, and go teach in a school where your children can also be? And I thought about that, and I'm going to run my hands through my hair because my hair is different than it normally is, and it's freaking me out. So I thought about that, and I realized that my children were in a position where they were not thriving. And so it was not time for me to look at the entire greater good and do what is good for all children. In that moment, I had to do what was best for my children. And then I knew I had time in my life, and I did, to later go out and work in education. People are saying things like, you're dumb. What happens if your husband gets hit by a car? Yada. And that's something that homeschool parents, especially the educating parent that stays home, right? This is something that homeschool parents have to deal with. There is a faith move, religious or not, that you have to take to decide to homeschool, because things aren't always going to go perfect. I've seen parents doing a great job homeschooling, and then something in the family changed financially. Someone got sick, a husband died, something, and the homeschooling parent had to pivot and figure out how to either continue homeschooling or to enroll that child in school. So those things happen, and it's normal for older parents to be concerned about their female child or their homeschooling child and the student, their grandchild. However, our plans change as our children grow. This is not a permanent situation, right? That degree could eventually get used. You may have to go back and get a certificate or two. But the time you have with your children is limited and fleeting. If I were you, because I feel like you do have to consider what your father's saying. Your father's worried about your long-term well-being. If I were going to homeschool, I would spend a year or two specifically homeschooling this child, and then I would start building a network of either a homeschool co-op where you can get together with other parents and teach corporately, or some other homeschool program. You have skills, you have an education. The best of both worlds would be to use them to start a homeschool-based business while homeschooling your kids. Okay? Am I the jerk for not wanting to quit my job to homeschool my child, even though she's being bullied? My child recently completed a difficult year in school due to persistent bullying by a former close friend. We tried addressing the issue through usual channels, talking to the other family and involving the school, but unfortunately, nothing improved. In fact, things escalated. When remote learning became the norm during the pandemic, we noticed how much more at ease and happy our child was learning from home. So we decided to stick with homeschooling temporarily, with one parent handling the teaching while the other continued to work full-time. That setup worked until recently. The parent who had been handling homeschool duties received a career opportunity that made it impossible to continue teaching. Now the expectation has shifted to me, and I'm being asked to leave my job to homeschool instead. I've worked hard to build my career after spending years at home, and I'm not ready to walk away from that. I've suggested switching to a different school as a compromise, where our child could have a fresh start and both of us could remain employed. But our child is strongly opposed, since homeschooling has been such a positive experience in contrast to what came before. I feel stuck between protecting my child's well-being and preserving my own career and identity. Am I the jerk for not wanting to leave my job to continue homeschooling, even though I know it would make her happier. No parent should homeschool against their wishes. It won't turn out well. For homeschooling to work, the educating parent and the supporting parent, right, both have to be 100% in agreement. And if someone is being dragged, kicking and screaming, or reluctantly, or losing their career to homeschooling, you're not gonna get any kind of a good experience. I think the solution offered is the fair solution, and that is to move the child to a different school. I was bullied, and my parents moved me, and I was fine after that. Someone said, do not quit your job, start looking for a lawyer and give them all of your documentation. If you have a case, you can sue the school and the child's family. They will probably start taking it seriously then. Good luck. Schools are generally ineffective at dealing with bullying, and you might as well not pin your hopes on some miracle from them. You do have lots of other options besides being a stay-at-home parent. So some brainstorming might be in order to understand what all the options are. Neither of you want to quit your jobs, so don't. If the bullying is this bad, shouldn't the teachers and school administration be involved, not just the parents? If both parents have well-paying careers, pay for a better school, pay for a better environment. You can do something in between. You can find a homeschool academy, which is like a small school or a micro school with a homeschool philosophy, and enroll your child there. If both parents are working, you have the money to do this. And all you have to really do is arrange for transportation. I think it's unfair for a spouse who had voluntarily taken on the task of homeschooling to then want to tag team out and throw the other parent who has a decent career and is enjoying their career in the ring. If you no longer want to homeschool your child, that is all fine and well, but you cannot force the other parent to take your place. But you can spend a few dollars to make sure your child has an experience that could be a compromise. Till next time.